When you sacrifice your life, you must make fullest use of your weaponry. It is false not to do so, and to die with a weapon yet undrawn. Miyamoto Musashi. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Full Metal Cast. I'm sorry for missing last week's episode. I skipped over it. If you're following the channel on Instagram, I explained that a close friend of mine and actually the biggest supporter, of the channel moved out of the country for a couple of years. That individual so happens to be the only female listener of the channel and our only sort of resident guest on the show, if you will, Britt, our AI, engineering, healthcare, sort of science, do it all, girl of many hats expert, who has blessed us with her presence for many episodes and many weeks, is out of the country. She's going to be running a lab on the other side of the world, doing some incredible things. And I won't share too much about her whereabouts or what she's going to be doing because she is going to be back. I'm going to sort out how to bring her on virtually so we can do a call and record it with, quality that is sufficient. But until then, you're stuck with just me and any other idiot I decide to bring onto the show. That being said, this upcoming weekend, so the weekend that this episode is going to be published, I will have crashed a local buyback taking place in this state with a couple of idiots in a group chat, as well as my brother and maybe some other friends, where the state is offering gift cards for long guns, pistols, and ARs for $50, $100, and $200 respectively. So the opportunity to pick up something potentially nice for a steal or even maybe partake in some arbitrage is pretty likely. Plus, we're going to be paying cash while the state pays in Meijer and Target gift cards that they surely were able to steal some of the funds that were set aside for this by only offering gift cards. But that's beyond the point. We're going to be out there, and even if we aren't fortunate enough to save any guns from the hands of the state, it'll be a good little community sort of building and team building sort of experience to sit out in the freezing cold rain, drinking coffee, smoking cigars, just, really building that bond with some of the individuals who feel strongly about the community. But that's a few days away. I don't know if I'm going to be recording during that. I would like to, but at the same time, I want to be attentive so that we can try to bring people over and give them our cash for their guns. But this week, something came across my desk while I was at work. And while we are in the cold, dark, miserable winter months this time of year, Webster's Dictionary, yes, they are still a thing and they are still around, has already decided to name or announce the word of 2023. That word being authentic. And when reading the articles that have announced this word that has been donned by Webster's Dictionary as word of the year, they all read very similarly in that we as humans are all we're all demanding authenticity. We're all craving for it. We need it. We're so interested in it now, which is why it was named Word of the Year. But the reasons why and the reasons that are stated why we are so interested in authenticity now is because of the AI and misinformation booms that have happened this year. But misinformation isn't a new term. The boom happened when they tried all locking you in your homes and forcing medication down your throat. But that being said, those are the two main reasons why the press, the media, whoever's pushing and trying to make money off of announcing Webster's Dictionary Word of the Year, those are the reasons why they brought those forth. However, any person who spent any amount of time online and who has more than one functioning brain cell already knows that nothing you see online, social media, whatever it may be, is real. AI is just simply late to the party there. And if I want to take it even a step further, I've spoken ad nauseum about my experiences in the dating pool and on dating apps when I was a newly single man in a new city when I moved. Half the female accounts that you interact with aren't real. They're just bots trying to either solicit just straight up sex or sexual favors, or they're bots trying to advertise for someone's OnlyFans. The girls that you do talk to, way more than half worship the stars or seek counsel with psychics instead of believing in anything real or have any sort of accountability or discipline. So right there, I think there are two real world applications why we may be craving authenticity and why we have been so deprived of it for so long. But we can even take it a step further. Why not? Because hoodie obviously is pretty applicable for this next point I'm about to make here. But the entire purpose of this channel is, maybe not the purpose, but the messaging that I put out in this channel is pretty clear that the state's pretty fucking useless. And our representatives have only really sought to serve themselves. The very promises that they run on and they make to you in order to get your vote, they simply throw to the winds as soon as they hit the office, and they sit their fat asses down in the chairs and the rooms and the buildings that we all pay for. And they don't give a shit about any of us. Our roads are worse, our schools are worse, our general safety is worse. And so right off the bat, the very people who we trust to provide a standard of living, the minimal standard of living, are inauthentic. The entire people that we rely upon, the entire system that we rely upon, is a scam, it's a sham, it's inauthentic. And unfortunately, our churches and our schools have done nothing to equip us to deal with this changing and ugly world, this ugly reality. So it's not a matter of people all of a sudden sticking the middle finger to the state for trying to lock them down in their homes whenever someone's coughing a little too much. And it's definitely not about a sophisticated search engine with some automation all of a sudden being the big buzzword of the year. Authenticity is something that human beings always crave. It's not something that ebbs and flows. We need it. We have always been surrounded by it throughout our evolution. If you look at tribes, if you look at how we have learned separate skills and knowledge sharing, it's about gathering around a fire. It's about being around different people and sharing ideas and beliefs and communicating face to face. It's not about communicating over like this, quite frankly, honestly. It's not about bitching at each other on X or in the comment section of YouTube videos or Instagram. We've always known that's not a real legitimate way for people to communicate. All of the factors in face-to-face communication that make it so well, the nonverbal cues, all of the contextual cues are completely gone. So maybe we've just hit a tipping point. Maybe we have been in this sort of shitstorm, this whirlpool of just surface level, what looks great, but as soon as you get past that surface level, we find out it's super shallow. It doesn't give us that fulfillment. It doesn't check the boxes we need to feel satisfied, to feel purpose in this life. And as we sort of ran through those doors, if you will, those walls, and found, false promise after false promise, false God after false God, false prophet after false prophet, we're just tired, I think. I think everyone's a little tired, and somebody just wants something real. Unfortunately, the only way that we interact with the world for the most part, or, at a large scale, is through an inauthentic or through a not real window. It's through the little misery square in your pocket. It's through the screens right now. And that's just sort of a vicious cycle, I think, and people are getting a little sick of it. I can go through all the pillars of this show and this channel and sort of apply them to this and how to pull yourself out of this thing. But even I, someone who tries to hold myself to those pillars and who prides myself in sort of adhering to those pillars every day, I get sucked down the rabbit hole. I get pulled in, and I find myself sort of hanging my head, having a shitty attitude and pouting about everything too, craving for something, genuine. Train. I don't know how well this is going to keep it out, so I'll wait for it to pass here. You do it at work. I think work is my best example. I work in an industry that could not be further removed from all of this, really. That's why I try, not extremely hard, but put a little bit of an effort into keeping myself somewhat anonymous. I go to work and none of this ever comes up. Not even a morsel of what I talk about on this channel, what I post, comes up at work. It just doesn't. It's not going to resonate with people. And that's fine. I'm not saying it has to. I'm not saying that what I'm talking about is the most important thing. I'm not even saying that what I have to say is real. This is just sort of my experience and my views. And if it happens to resonate with people, great. I'm not trying to evangelize or prophetize on people and push my agenda and push my beliefs on other people. I have a channel, I have a page. If they want to follow it and come listen to this and interact with it, that's what I'm here for. I'm not simply trying to, I'm not like really trying to force other people to sort of talk about the things I want to talk about. That'd be pretty autistic. I did take the RADS test. Unfortunately, I'm not autistic. I'm just fucking weird. But anyways, you'll go to work and it's the office cooler talk. None of it's real. It's this watered down, no pun intended, just vanilla bullshit, just to waste time, just to fill an awkward silence that you can move on to the next awkward silence and fill it with shit talks about the weather and kids and the holidays and plans, but you don't really give a shit. You're not going to remember any of that. And that, I think, is just one example in the real world of inauthenticity outside of the little misery squares, So all that really all that to say, like, authenticity and our craving for it, our demand for it, it's not a new fucking thing. It's not because AI is having a moment. It's not because for the past 3 years the government can't stop people from speaking freely on the internet and calling whatever inconvenient truths that people are sharing about them misinformation. They can't shut that down. That's not why we crave authenticity. We have always been craving it. And if I really want to go schizo and if I really want to appeal to a certain corner of the internet, there's a certain, I'm not going to call it the M word because I feel like that's going to get flagged, document, a certain work that was created by an individual who died this year in prison, infamously, that sort of speaks to this. It's not a new concept. And I think as much as it is important to remember that we need authentic interaction, we need to surround ourselves and our community needs to be authentic, I think it's just as important to understand I'm not really sure how to word this. It's just as important to understand it's a tough one because they're not wrong. The articles aren't wrong, claiming that we crave authenticity, that we have an increased interest in it even this time, even more so than last year, the year before. I think the need has always been growing year over year for authentic interaction and just truth. But we can't be led astray. I think we know authenticity is one of those real, tangible things. It's one of those things that is black and white. And not many things are in this world because human problems are just inertly gray areas. They're going to be ugly. They're going to be messy. But authenticity, for the most part, when people know it, or when people feel it, they know it. They can identify it. They can very confidently say someone is being authentic or inauthentic. It's a gut feeling. It's sort of in our instincts. I think that's part of our evolution. So AI and the new government term. So obviously you have conspiracy theorists, which was, I think it was coined during, was it Watergate? Now misinformation, malmis and disinformation are the new conspiracy theorists as far as diction goes and creating and assigning words to things to sort of push a narrative. Those aren't the reasons why we're suddenly craving it more than ever. It comes down to much more than that. And so to focus just on those two things, it's not only extremely short-sighted, it's only going to create more of a craving for it because, again, you're chasing something that doesn't exist. You're looking for Bigfoot. That's actually going to piss a couple people off because I know many people do like Bigfoot or believe in Bigfoot. And I think, and actually I talked about the misery square and how it's not a real great way to interact. I take that back. I think that was a little too definitive because the FM group chats, the state level group chats that have been going around, I have met some of the gentlemen in the chat that I'm currently in. They're great dudes, awesome guys. We've grabbed drinks, we've gone to the range before. We're going to hit the buyback, obviously, this week. But they share a lot of great things in that chat. Life experiences, breakups, career questions, referring each other to jobs, talking about experience in the military, sharing feedback on certain things, whenever anyone has questions or are coming from a place of inexperience. That's authentic interaction. It's not, and yes, there's a lot of bullshit talk in there, but it adds to something more. It adds to this little community that we are currently building and sort of building a little bit of momentum, I'd like to think. It's not aimless water cooler talk. It's not talking about the weather or someone's kids. You can tell that these are good guys. Well, the ones I've met at least are good guys. I'm sure there's probably a fed or two sprinkled within there, no doubt, given the amount of autistic participants in the chat. But yeah, it's one of those things you can tell, despite it being an online group chat, you get the feeling who's authentic and who's not. And you can just tell based on where they're coming from, how they're communicating, the level at which they communicate. It's sort of built into our DNA. It's built into how we operate. It's subconscious. So it's not AI. It's not whatever the government decides to call misinformation on a given day, making us crave authenticity more and more. The dating world's been absolutely crippled. It's a fucking mess out there right now, and I have great pity for anyone trying to participate in it, because the players on both sides, male and female, I know I talk shit about the female side only because that's where I'm coming from. That's my interaction. I've heard, again, limited quantities because scared of females here, but I have no doubt that the male side is just as abhorrent. I have seen dudes out and about at the bars and at clubs and stuff. Again, house music is a bit of a dirty pleasure of mine, so I do partake in going out to less than savory scenes to maybe support some friends of mine who are DJs, who produce, who make a living like that. And I like listening to that music, but I see guys and girls alike out there like that. And I couldn't imagine having to be a part of that pool, knowing just how much of a mess it was for the short amount of time I dipped my toe in. And then, I didn't even get into like porn and OnlyFans and things like that. My motto's always been, you have the freedom to do whatever you want. That's sort of the whole point of this thing and being, an anarchist. It's your body, your choice, essentially. Obviously, I'm not saying all porn is someone making a conscious choice. I know some of it is a bit darker, and there's some human trafficking element involved to it. There's child abuse element involved in it as well. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about those who willingly participate. So really more so the OnlyFans side of the equation. Obviously, go right ahead if that's what you want to do. But morality and virtue and all that other thing come into play as well. And then the argument also brings up, well, if people are going to pay for it, who am I to not do it? And I get both sides of that argument. I'm not here to unravel that right now. All I'm simply trying to tie OnlyFans and porn to is the authenticity topic that has been brought up recently. OnlyFans and porn are not where to go to have a window into or a view into what authentic interaction and relationships look like. And yet they are the porn industry. We'll just call it, loop them in together, because why not? It is the biggest industry there has ever been. No, that's a false statement. It is one of the biggest industries in existence right now. I don't have the numbers, but it's no secret everyone's infatuated by it. It's one of those things that preys on how your mind works. It's one of those things that preys on the chemical balances in your brain. But I won't go any further into the science of it. It's just another one of the things to throw on top of the pile that explains why we lack authenticity in our world today and why people crave it more and more. It's difficult to have authentic interactions, just like it's difficult to go to the gym, just like it's difficult to force yourself to dry fire, just like it's difficult to force yourself to go to the range, to load up the car with all your ammo, your gear, your kit, your targets, etc., to clean up. Everything worth pursuing is always going to be hard. There's a trade-off in everything in life. It's the sucker's folly, recognizing the upside without understanding or knowing that there's going to be negative side effects, or completely ignoring those negative side effects. Everything in life's going to be a trade-off. That's just how life works. That's how it is. And so it's no surprise then when you pick up your phone to look at maybe some unsavory media, or seek to communicate with somebody, or when you turn on the news, or when you vote for somebody who's nothing but a failure, like Gavin Newsom, who has let his state absolutely crumble and turn to shit. That's a literal, statement. Pull up the poop map, if you will. He's running for He's running for president. The dude who let his state collapse, the dude who let the homeless overrun his state so that the tax-paying, law-abiding citizens suffered, is running for president. The dude who did not fix the biggest problem in his state until another dictator from across the world decided to show up is running for president. And that makes a whole lot of sense if you think about it, because that dude over there from China, that is Mr. Newsom's fucking idol right there, holding all and complete total control over a population with nobody to say shit about it. And so it makes a whole lot of fucking sense that he would want to put his best foot forward for that. And what's crazy, somehow he's allowed to throw his hat in the ring to even run for president, to waste tax dollars. And you can say, oh, there's rules about running and sort of funds being allocated. Yeah, so Santos got caught, misallocating funds. He got caught and he got booted as fast as he did because he was blatant about it. The stories went wide and everyone else in the fucking room with him does it, and they don't want to get caught. So they threw him under the bus, put it in reverse, ran him over again to cover their fucking tracks. If you think he's the only one, I'm sorry, you are incredibly disconnected. Just like if you think any one of those motherfuckers are different than Kim Jong-un, who went on fucking TV crying that the women over in North Korea aren't having enough children, you're out of your fucking mind. They're all the same tyrannical, dumb motherfuckers. These people have only obtained their position, not even based on nepotism, I would say. They won the world's least transparent popularity contest by having the most money. That's it. There's nothing else to it. They have no resume that they could show you to prove that they are fit for the job they are in. Meanwhile, you go to college, you spend your whole life going to school up until you're 22 or so, 21, 22, and only to find that the entry-level jobs require X number of years in the field, but how the fuck are you supposed to get X number of years experience if all the years prior to that point, before you looking at that entry-level job, were spent in school, and yet somehow that time in school doesn't count as experience. Yet these dumb fucks who've never run a lemonade stand in their life can just walk right in and run a fucking country, can lock down an entire country, can go to war with another country, can fund a war in another country, can arm another country to go to war with another country, can overthrow another country's government, and so on and so on and so on. Oh, and then can completely destabilize the world economy for 3+ years after locking down said country. The entire system we live in, the entire government, all the people who run the fucking government are inauthentic. They've lied. They've lied in every step of the way, in their financials, on their resumes, on their statement of character. Nothing about them is real and authentic. So another thing on the fucking pile. It's not AI. It's not just misinformation. It's the whole bloody mess of it. And there you go. The world's a fucking mess. That's not news to anybody, though. That's why this sort of movement, that's this whole sort of freedom movement, the gun space, the gun community, and just people finding their way out of the establishments and the sort of dogmas that they were so embedded within, for the past decades, or so. I think things really hit a hyper political sort of pinnacle, if you will, around the Bush-Obama transition. Obviously, that's about as far as I can remember given my age. If someone else can remember when things got super heated politically among just the normal everyday civilians, let me know. But things really ramped up around there, I feel like, and they've only been exponentially getting more and more tense as that equation, as that sort of formula has been proven to work with engagement. Just like it is on social media. If they see the social media companies, if they see you bitching back and forth and fighting with somebody, an anti-gun or a pro-gun control group on Twitter, for example, this is current day. This is with X. This isn't, prior Twitter, although it may have worked with that. And I'm not trying to disparage X with this example. This is just my experience. I troll a lot on Twitter. I get a kick out of it when I'm bored. Should find a more constructive hobby, I know. But this is at my 9 to 5 whenever I'm walking around, taking a coffee break. I'll hop on. And because I have liked other influencers, or I myself have replied to pro-gun control or anti-gun groups talking shit and trolling, I see just as much of them and their content as I do pro-2A, pro-gun, pro-anarchist stuff as well. Just like I see more Joe Biden things than I do other anti-government, anarchist things, because I like replying to his shit and making fun and trolling him. It's that engagement. It's that interaction. It works. It's that outrage sort of cycle. The snake eats the tail. They found that when Obama came in, and it was very easy to rile people up with the white versus black card there, they found it incredible. And by they, I mean the media, social media, the news companies, the whole political system, even for that matter as well, saw people vote more, saw people voice their opinions more, no matter how trash they were. But it got people active. It got people feeling something, and it got people to act. And so that only got cranked up since then, in my opinion, from what I've been able to observe and see. And maybe that's just because we have social media now, and I have more of an overview of sort of the landscape we're in now. But that's not genuine human interaction either, is it? Because we're just screaming at each other. We're screaming at each other. We don't know anything about the other person. And then we are fighting simply for a team that doesn't believe in us. We are fighting for a team with a captain who is simply in the sport for his own gain. The politicians, the president, whoever it is has been voted into office, whoever a public servant is that you consider to be your public servant, they don't know who you are. They don't care about you. And quite frankly, it's not in their best interests to care about you and to do things for you. If that is their only job, their job then, by definition, is to make money, is to make a living. And so that's exactly what they're going to do. We ignored human fucking behavior and game theory when we just trust these people and vote for these people left and right. But we've been promised that there's systems and controls and separations of power to make sure they have our best interests in mind. Yet, I think we have seen through insider trading, through tax evasion, through child predation, and through many other murder, and through many other unsavory things, they simply don't. So, AI and misinformation, the biggest reasons why we need authenticity, as the press would have you believe, yet the press has only helped deprive us of authentic communication, interaction, trust in general. How ironic is that? The primary spreaders of malmis and disinformation are the very folks who will tell you that misinformation is the very reason why we crave authenticity. And wow, we've really gone full circle with that, haven't we? Wow, I didn't even see the irony in that when I was sort of drawing out my thoughts for this episode. The very jackasses who lied to you 3 years ago, who made you hide in your homes, who tried to convince you to put a poisonous experimental medication in your body. Otherwise, you were a fucking caveman or a troglodyte or even a murderer for that matter, are the ones who are telling you that misinformation is the biggest reason why people crave authenticity today. What a gaslight. What a fucking gaslight, huh? And I think this, and I know I've just been ragging on the world and the systems and, the corporations of today. And I don't like just ending an episode on that. And I started making another point before I went off on a tangent there. But the reason why this whole sort of freedom movement, the gun movement, the anarchist movement for that matter, even, and maybe people don't consider themselves to be anarchists, but people who just are apolitical, who hate both sides, who hate talking about it, who don't vote, who find themselves, pulling out of those sort of institutions, that's been picking up a lot of steam. People are frustrated. Things are more expensive. There's what seems to be a permanent renting class beginning to mount as houses, on the list of things that are now completely unaffordable for most, and people living paycheck to paycheck. As your VP said, most people are $200 or $2,000 away from being bankrupt and never being able to financially recover. So it makes sense that people are getting angry, that people are seeking some communities like us, because we haven't really existed at a legitimate scale. Let's just say we've always been there, but we've always been fringe groups. We've always been extremist groups, the conspiracy theorist groups and whatnot. But as people are getting sicker, as people are dying sooner, as people can't afford groceries, gas, and shelter, it's pretty clear people are getting pretty sick of our inauthentic leaders and representatives and systems that they've put in place. And that's good news. It's the good news that I see in this. I find that to be fantastic news, because that only helps us. And I can do this to help sort of grow our cause and to put messages out there regarding, how bad the state is and how your natural rights and personal freedoms are the most important things that matter. And no man, group of men, or document could ever take that away from you or impact those natural rights. That's like advertising. That's like marketing. But the best part is, they're sort of doing that for us, the state, the media, and whatnot. They're kind of doing our job for us. The snake's eating the tail. And maybe that's just natural course. Maybe we got lucky and the individuals leading our government and our media companies are just absolute fucking morons, and self-destruction is simply in their DNA, and it's just inevitable for this to happen and to push more people away from them. Granted, it's a slow trickle. It's not a massive push. I'm not saying the numbers are huge by any means, but you see it every day. I have family members now who talk more about, I want a gun. I have friends now who have been so anti-gun. I have friends from other countries who have been so anti-gun, who make fun of our school shootings, who now have texted me. I had one this week who texted me, I want a gun for home defense. Now, he said nothing crazy, but he, for the first time, reached out and texted me, I want a gun. So I said, come to the fucking buyback. We're going to get some guns for a steal. But that change is happening. People don't feel safe. People are angry. People are frustrated. People are tired. People don't have the same amount of money they used to have years ago. And what was promised isn't being delivered. So authenticity isn't just suddenly a hot commodity. It isn't just suddenly in demand because, again, a search engine can now do things automatically, quickly, or people don't like what other people have to say, so they call it a hot topic, a buzzword, if you will. It's a mounting pile of shit that's been building for a very long time and has only exponentially increased the size of the pile that is within the past 2 decades, I'd say. So authentic, your 2023 word of the year. And I think with that, obviously, it's been a lot of negative, a lot of ragging on the world. But, everyone needs a little bit of a bitch sesh. I've been a little bummed, since the number one supporter of the channel, Britt, left. So everything sucks. Of course, I have to have a bit of a ragging episode before I go to the gun buyback and kick it with the boys and have a good time. Hoping the next episode is a little happier, sharing my experience at the gun buyback. I'm going to be scouting out locations this week to make sure we don't get kicked out or charged with trespassing or anything else fucking stupid. Private sales are legal in this state, long guns and for handguns. There's extra paperwork for handguns, obviously. But we're going to be taking advantage of that. And again, We want to give people cold, hard cash because for the same reasons I just went over here, everything's more expensive. The state handing out fucking gift cards does very little for people who need to make their mortgage payments, who need to make their rent payments, who maybe can't shop at the very places that you've given them cards for. So if people want to give up their guns, they've already made up their mind on that. They just want to get money for that and put that money towards something they need. So we're going to be there with our own cold, hard cash, helping these people, which is a lot more than the fucking state is going to do. The state took $10,000, turned that $10,000 into a they didn't tell you how much money they have in Target and Meijer gift cards, but I can promise you it's less than 10 grand, and are going to be out there taking your guns, chopping them down, melting them down. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be out there with cold hard cash, Venmo, check, PayPal, whatever you want, but it's going to be just money, paying the exact same price for, the types of firearms the state's going to be paying you with in gift cards. Completely legal, completely by the book. But again, we're giving cold hard cash and making sure that those guns do not end up in the hands of people who are irresponsible, who are unfit to hold firearms. All the individuals out there are very well versed in the manual of arms of many different weapon systems, has shot thousands of rounds over many, many years of our lives. And even if we do not hold them and put them in our personal saves personally, we will make sure they go to FFLs and other dealers who require background checks, transfer papers and all of that as well to make sure that the proper paper trail is being sort of created and that unsavory individuals do not get their hands on guns either. So that's our goal. Arguably more environmentally friendly and sustainable and equitable, all of the buzzword, adjectives. But the big thing is you get cold, hard cash. Oh, one sec. Let me show you the banner I made for this. So we're going to be out there, right? It's going to be, I checked the weather. It's like going to be 40 degrees and raining, and it's from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., I believe. So I got a tent, I got a table. I'm going to pick up some, coffee dispensers for the boys. I'll have music, cigars, whatnot. But I created a banner because, we have to have a name, right? We need to fly some sort of flag. And as I was writing this out at work one day when I was bored, I was trying to find out how do we look, organized and professional without selling our soul too much when going about this. And so that's right. We are the FAG. We are the Fellowship Against Guns. We pay cash and have cleaner records, baby. This will be hanging right on the front of the table or the side of the tent that we're going to be out there with. Should be pretty interesting. I had a whole bunch of pretty hilarious sort of acronyms spelled out for this, but this one won the vote with the fellas in the group chat. So we're going to be out there. I may make a shirt of this actually, although with that in mind, I do actually have an idea for a shirt I want to run pre-order on. So hopefully by this weekend, if you're following the account on Instagram, I'll send the announcement out. I'm going to do a pre-order. So unfortunately, because this channel is so young and because I've done such a poor job at staying on top of creating content, whether it be posts on Instagram, whether it be episodes that I skip on the occasional week or so, I need to do pre-order. But the shirt is bussin'. I already have the design created. I am just getting pricing now. I want to make sure the shirt material is high quality and the fit is exactly how I want it to be too. The design is top notch though, I will say. You'll have people reading it, you'll have people coming up to you, especially if they are in our communities, and especially if they are into guns, freedoms, knives on Instagram, they'll be very familiar with the design on the back of the shirt. So a little spoiler for you there. Keep an eye out for that post this weekend or the following week. I'm serious about it. I've teased pre-orders on shirts before, but I feel very strongly about this one. I'm also working on that Tiananmen Square design as well. I want to Photoshop like 100 more fucking tanks and put other agencies and companies on there as well. So that's going to be one as well. So the FAG, Tiananmen Square shirt designs in the back of my brain for a future date that I'll run pre-orders on. But I already know which one I'm going to be running first. And so with that being said, I think we're going to call it a night. We're going to call it an episode here. Authentic. Be authentic. Surround yourself with authentic people. And when you find yourself sort of isolated or going down the rabbit hole and being terminally online, remove yourself from it. Force yourself to do something difficult. Go to the gym and talk to people. Go to a coffee shop and talk to people. Meet up with your boys. Meet up with, your community. And just have good, authentic conversation. It's going to be hard to pull yourself out of it. It's going to be hard to make yourself do that things. But just like everything else in life, it's a trade-off. You have to pay the price if you want to reap the reward. And so with that, good night. I'll talk to you next week after the gun buyback, and stay metal.